In this movie, we're going to have a look at distort and transform effects. If you want to follow along, I have Fishbowl Transform Start open, and I also have Superhero Distort Start open. And here's my little Bubbles character. And what I want to do is I want to give Bubbles a pattern background. So I've drawn this star, and you'll notice that I can scale it up and scale it down, as you would imagine. So we'll just scale it down a little bit in the corner there. And what I want to do first of all is just make some adjustments to the star so it's not quite as rigid. So I'm zooming in using Command plus on the keyboard to zoom in. And then I can either use my navigator or hold down the spacebar to toggle to the hand tool and just make that central in my workspace. Now I have quite a complex workspace open here. If you want to, you can open the navigator and the layers panel just by going up to the window menu and choosing them there. And then you can dock them into the same arrangement I have if you want to. Now we're going to go to the Effect menu and we're going to go into Distort and Transform. We'll have a look at Free Distort later, but I just want to run through some of the others. We have Pucker and Bloat, and if you click on Preview in any of these dialog boxes, you can actually see the changes update as you're adjusting them. So this will pull points out from the star or push them in towards the star, creating these nice kind of floral, almost floral effects or spiky effects. So that's Pucker and Bloat. I'm going to zoom through these because we've got quite a few to cover. I've got Roughen, and again, if I preview that, that's going to roughen the edges a little bit, make it a little bit less perfect, if you like. So if you want to add some rough detail to your star shape, you can do using Roughen. And you can choose smooth edges or corner edges, and you'll notice the points of the star smooth out when I choose smooth. Let's bring the detail down a little bit, and the size a little bit. And that's something that I quite like to add just to roughen the edges of my artwork. So before we have a look at Transform, let's go to Twist. Twist is fantastic. It allows you to twist the star around a little bit and get this nice curved edge. So I'm going to give that about a value of 20, and I'm going to actually leave that on. Now if we go back up here, there are lots of other effects that we can apply. I quite like to also apply round corners, which is in the Stylize effects. So I'm just going to put some round corners on my star as well. Let's just give it a slightly lower value. And we now have some round corners. Now if we have a look in our Appearance panel, you'll see that the appearance is applied within here. Now you'll notice that the round edges are inside the bounding box. This one hasn't got a round edge. But if I reverse the order of the effects, I now have a round edge over here. So just be aware that the order in which the effects appear determine how they work. So sometimes just switching the order of the effects means that you round the corners before you twist the path. So there's my round corners, and then afterwards I'm twisting the path. Before, I would have been twisting the path and then rounding the corners. So have a little play with the order in which you apply effect. So very quickly, on to my favourite, which is the transform effect. Sounds boring, but it is extremely powerful. If I click on Preview and then add 3 copies, and then go up to my Move controls, you'll notice that I can create multiple copies of my image or my object, and I can go beyond 100 points and just nudge that value up a little bit higher. And you'll see I can start to create these repeating patterns. Now, I can also do things like rotate, but let's just click OK for now and double click the hand tool so we can see all 4 copies. So I have 4 copies. Now I can click on the hyperlink in the Appearance panel to open up those settings again and make changes if I want. So I can do things like adjust the angle settings. And if I click on Preview, that allows me to do things like create circles. So if I come in here and just add some more copies, you'll see I can start to create circular formations from my stars. Very easy to create a circle there. Now I'm not going to do that, so let's take a few copies off. So we'll go to 3. We're going to take rotation off. Incidentally, you can also scale as well. So if I adjust scale, I can scale them over time, both horizontally and vertically. And if we rotate as well, we could have the stars coming out of the bowl. So I really recommend that you have a really good old play with this because it is such good fun. But for now, we're just going to do 3 copies and we're going to adjust them. Let's put that on 100% rather than 0. And we're just going to tile them basically. So use it to tile them across here. And if I refresh my preview, you can see that. Various options in here for scaling and stroking effects, so that if you are using scale to scale them down, it will also operate and keep the strokes and effects in proportion. You can also transform patterns, and there's various reflect and random options. But I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to do something completely mad. I'm going to add another copy of the transform effect. And this time, it will ask me, it will say, are you sure you want to apply another instance of this effect? Now I know what I'm doing and I do want to add another instance, so I'm going to say apply new effect. And this time I'm going to say 3 copies again, but this time I'm going to move it vertically. And again, if I preview, I can see that happening. So I'm just going to nudge that so that I have my stars forming a lovely patterned background. Now, the nice thing about this is it's completely editable. I can go and change the colour of the stroke if I want to at any time, and all of it updates. I can go and give it more or less twist if I want to, and everything updates. So it really is fantastic. I can even decide to put a little bit of scale in there. And of course, when I click preview, you can see that update. So a fantastic tool, the transform tool. I use this in virtually everything I do. Now, incidentally, at the bottom here, I can just click on opacity, and let's just dim down the opacity for the stars in the background. And we'll use something like hard light mode to composite them with the background footage. So let's have a look at our superhero. So click on superhero distort start.ai. And here what I want to do is create a shadow for my superhero. Now I'm going to switch off all the other layers for now, except for the buildings that she's standing on. And we'll also switch off that text. Okay. So to create a shadow, the easiest way to create a shadow is to use the drop shadow effect, but it won't cast a shadow at an angle. It will only place a shadow behind an object and use an offset value. So here's a tip for creating a shadow. Duplicate your layer, drag it onto the new layer button, select it, and I'm going to switch off the background layer for now. Go to the Pathfinder, so go to Window, Pathfinder, and click on Unite. And what that's going to do is combine all of those complex shapes together just to create one outline. Now, it takes a little bit of time to do that, but once it's done it, it creates this outline. Now, it's white. I actually want it to be black. So I'm going to click on the colour swatch here to make it black. Then I'm going to switch on my foreground layer and then select the background layer and go to Effect, Distort and Transform, Free Distort. And what Free Distort allows me to do is literally pick up that image and move it. Now, unfortunately, there is no preview in here. I really wish there was. But what I can do is click OK, have a look at the result, and then if I need to make an adjustment, I go back into Free Distort and I can kind of figure out where it needs to go. So I'm actually going to place it in this direction. So I want my shadow over here casting in that direction. Okay, I can also move these. So if I want to, I can move these points as well and get it exactly where I want it. But let's just pretend that is perfect. Obviously it's not. We can also add a gradient to it. So instead of filling it with solid black, what I can do is apply a gradient to it. So we could just go into our swatches and choose a gradient. So let me just open up my swatches. And I'm just going to choose a red to white gradient. Okay, I'm going to delete that point just by dragging it over here. And this one, I'm going to make transparent. So I'm going to bring that down to 0. So you'll notice we've got our shadow going off to 0. And this one, I'm going to change to black. Okay, and now, we've still got a bit of colour under there, so I just need to delete that one and just make sure that I only have black. Now, I can also adjust it, make it a radial gradient if I prefer a radial gradient. Obviously, I would need to reverse that, but I'm going to choose linear gradient at the moment. and then go into my appearance panel, and I can even adjust the opacity of the whole thing, bring that down to 90%, and then maybe overlay it on top of the footage or use multiply mode to composite it on top of the footage. So there we go, that's an easy way to add a drop shadow. And if you go to Superhero Distort End, you'll notice here I've extended the shadow up over this building, and I've used a clipping mask just to cut the edge off it. And you'll find out about how to use clipping masks in one of the other movies. So that's a little bit about the distort and transform effects.